Hey everyone, it's Matt Donaghue with Mission Financial Planners. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today on caregiving. I'm going to share my screen in just a second here, and once we get going, we will go ahead and jump right into it. Just a couple housekeeping items for you. If you do have any questions or anything during the presentation, feel free to ask in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll be happy to answer those towards the end of the presentation today. But let's go ahead and jump into it. So on your screen, you can see that it says 11 seconds. Okay. What does 11 seconds mean? Well, every 11 seconds, something happens to someone in this country. So there's personal health issues that can happen. There's safety mishaps that can happen. We've all experienced it with loved ones or friends who have gotten older and then they start getting a little more frail. They start needing a little more help with things than they used to in the past. We've all had those family members where some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, they are who they are today. That's okay, right? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen to all of us. When you look at a lot of people out there that have issues, right? There's a lot more chronic illnesses than maybe were reported or recorded in the past. Everything from diabetes to heart disease. But the good news is a lot of this stuff is now treatable. A lot of this stuff is manageable, which is why it's considered, well, some of them are considered a chronic illness. And a chronic illness is something that you're just going to, deal with for the rest of your life. An acute illness is something that you're expected to recover from. There's a big difference between the two, right? One is ongoing care, one is more of maybe a short-term care. In addition to that, when you start having to help your parents or whomever that you're gonna end up helping, you're gonna have some challenges, right? And these are going to really force you to think about some serious questions, right? Everything from who's monitoring the person's health to what happens when it's no longer safe for them to be home alone, right? And of course, in the middle there is how do you make some of these future decisions? So again, I'm Matt Donaghue, certified financial planner. I'm also a chartered life underwriter, certified in long-term care. I'm a managing member at Mission Financial Planners, and I will be your host today for 4 keys to making a difference in a family caregiving challenge. So elder caregiving, it is challenging. It is stress-inducing. It is very stressful. I'm not even going to say stress-inducing. It's just stressful and it's complicated, right? Unfortunately, it's hard, it's stressful, and it's complicated. And the vast majority of people just don't plan for it. A caregiving plan is designed to take care of the person, okay? And when you're working with someone like a financial planner or an insurance agent, they should be helping you develop a plan to provide care when someone needs extended care or they have a chronic illness that's going to require some help. They just got frail. They're going to need help. That's how I want you to think about this. Okay. So one of the things you want to think about, and we're going to take you through 4 keys here today, but what is the most important consideration? Where do you start? How do you even begin? Well, the first one is you want to ensure that the people you care about are taken care of. Let me just stress this once and for or at the beginning, right? Let me just stress this right up front. Taking care of that person does not mean buying a policy on just that person. Like if you're married, right? If an insurance policy is part of your plan, and you buy an insurance policy on just one person because you want to make sure they're taken care of, you need to also buy a policy on the other person. What I'm getting at is you need to have a plan for both people. Okay. I've had people come to me over the years. I want to make sure my wife is taken care of. So I want to put a extended care or long-term care plan together for her. First question out of my mouth is, okay, great. If you really want to take care of your spouse, what have you set up so that she doesn't have to provide care for you or he doesn't have to provide care for you in the event that you're the person who needs care? Because that's really taking care of that person. The other thing you have to remember too is medical needs, right? So we're talking about good planning here. Okay. And I know I've mentioned insurance a couple times. I've had people over the years tell me, hey, you know what? I'd rather just transfer the risk to an insurance company if at all possible. I've had other people say, I just want to save for it or create some kind of income stream or cash flow or an account for it. There's no right answer. Okay. The key is, do you have a plan? That's really the key with this. So one of the first important or most important parts is making sure medical needs are met. So the first thing is, what do they need help with? What kind of care do they need? Sometimes a questionnaire can be really useful checklist. And the other thing though is having a conversation, right? What are they concerned about? What do they want to make sure happens? And as we all know, sometimes that's hard, right? Sometimes it's hard to have a conversation where both people are really listening to each other. Um, the biggest thing I'd say is whatever you do for parents, for yourselves, for anyone, is start having the conversation today as soon as you've seen this webinar. So situations can change. You're going to have some legal and health decisions that have to be planned out. That stuff does not happen overnight. Um, as an example, what happened if that person becomes incapacitated? Hey, if they have a big IRA, right, individual retirement account that they saved up and they built up and they put money away in for years, the key word of that account is individual. If that person's laying in a hospital bed and can't make a decision, nobody can touch that money unless there's a durable power of attorney already in place. Who's making the medical decisions? If you don't have a medical directive in place, your state has a plan for you, whether you like it or not. And that is what doctors, physicians are required to follow in the absence of a medical directive. And then the last one really does also tie into decision making is who's making the financial decisions while you're incapacitated? Is it your spouse? Is it a kid? Is it a trust company? Is it a bank? Who's making those decisions on your behalf? Who's notifying them that this has happened to you? So these are things that don't get done like that. These are things that sometimes it can take a week, it can take a month, it can take 6 months to get all this in place because you're busy, right? So act on this stuff now. Just say, hey, you know what? By the end of the year, I'm going to have this done. So the discussion that you want to have, first of all, is okay, what do you want to see happen? And what I hear from most people is, I don't want my kids to be burdened. I don't want my spouse to be burdened. What can I do from a planning standpoint to make sure that I'm going to get the care I deserve, but that my family won't be worn out, exhausted, and coming apart trying to provide that care for me? That's what I hear from most people. The second thing then is you have to coordinate someone who's actually going to be responsible, right? Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's your, some kind of power of attorney, something like that. But somebody has to be responsible for making sure this happens. Money, where's it going to come from? That's the question. Okay. Could you save money in the event of this? Sure. Could you maybe tap home equity in the event of this? Maybe. Do you already have a line of credit on your house? Are both you and your spouse able to access it legally? Right? Those are questions, right? And no matter what, folks, I know the slide says have the conversation before you're 60, have it before you're 50. Really have it before you're 50. If you haven't had it, the best time to have it is today. So start having this conversation as soon as you can. So some of the main issues you need to address when you're trying to come up with your solution, well, the caregiving plan has to address 4 key areas: medical, legal, financial, and personal. I think personal is the most important. Okay, that's me, right? Because it's all about what do you want to have happen. The medical, legal, and financial all support that. Okay, so personal, what do you want to have happen? What medical decisions have you made? What legal decisions have you made? What financial decisions have you made to ensure that your personal issues, your personal goals are going to be met by the plan that gets put in place? So this caregiving plan, it provides a communication framework. It outlines your wishes and priorities. It assesses the needs in terms of those areas we just talked about, and it helps you get organized so that help can be on the way. Let's talk medical for a second. So activities of daily living. This is the cornerstone of what's called chronic care or long-term care. You'll hear me use the term extended care quite often. Activities of daily living. These are the 6 that are right there. So eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, continence, and then transferring from a bed to a chair. If you go down the road of insurance for this, like a long-term care insurance or an annuity that has some kind of long-term care feature built into it, or one of those hybrid life insurance long-term care policies, they are all standardized now. 2 of these ADLs, it only takes 2 of these to trigger the benefits from that insurance to start providing benefits to you. It only takes 2. This is standardized. It's been standardized for at least 20 years at this point, and it's something that you just need to make sure you understand. This is activities of daily living. This will drive extended care, chronic care, long-term care conversations. Okay. These are the things that you need, that when you start needing help with these, that's when that stuff kicks in. Do you need in-home help? Okay. Is there a nurse coming in? Is there seniors helping seniors? Do you have a home health aide? Do you have a family or a friend who's going to move in with you? Is there an elder care specialist you can work with to make sure that the family can help manage all this? I'd strongly recommend that. I'd strongly recommend it. The other thing you should do is review your insurance policies. Um, it used to be years ago, people would say, oh, I've got my health insurance, I got my Medicare, I'm good to go in retirement. And then they get this real shocker when they see the Medicare and Me booklet that the Department of Health or that the uh, um, Social Security Administration, Medicare, and all that they put out every year. It comes from the government. It comes from Medicare, and it quite clearly says long-term care. And again, long-term care is the same as chronic care and extended care. Long-term care is not covered by Medicare at all. It is not covered. Life insurance. Okay. Life insurance in and of itself is life insurance. It's when you die that it pays out. Some life insurance policies have things called living benefit riders that can pay out money if you are chronically ill. They can pay out money if you become terminally ill. So they can, it's a horrible language, but they call it advancing the death benefit. So there's things you can do there from life insurance. You want to review your insurance policies to see which policies have those provisions. Are they worth keeping? Should they be replaced? Should they be exchanged for another policy? Is there long-term care insurance? Did you go buy a long-term care policy in and of itself? Did you buy one of those life insurance or annuities that I talked about that has long-term care benefits built into it? But what kind of insurance is in place to help address this issue? For every policy you have, you want to keep the annual statement. If you aren't sure where they are, call your insurance company, get a copy of that annual statement as soon as you can. The other thing you need to do is review the long-term care funding options. Okay, so the first thing is what are we dealing with here? What activities of daily living am I now unable to do? Okay, so that's going to determine what kind of help do I need. What happens for the person who needs the help? How are we going to make sure they get the help when they need it and how they need it? Is insurance appropriate? I've had people tell me, I don't want to pay for this. Why should I pay for this when I can have an insurance company pay for this? What type of insurance coverage might make sense? And then you need to weigh options. And I would strongly suggest work with a certified financial planner because they have to look at the whole picture. And that's what we on our team are, is all certified financial planners. We have to look at the whole picture. We have to look at everything for everyone. Okay. Not just investments, not just income, not just insurance. We have to look at the taxes. We have to look at the estate plan. We have to look at the whole picture. So you really want to make sure you're working with someone who's got a holistic approach to helping you deal with this. So I mentioned the point on the left already, Medicare does not cover long-term care. And if you think Medicaid is a plan, it isn't. Okay. You have to impoverish yourself to become eligible for Medicaid. And if you do it within a 5-year window and then that event occurs, I hate to tell you folks, but they're going to look at all the assets you gave away or moved and everything, and they're going to penalize you for that. So Medicaid is not an answer. It absolutely isn't the answer if you want the care and the dignity that you deserve. And I've heard a lot of people over the years give a real flippant, well, I'll just let the state deal with it. I'm not worried about it. Really? Have you actually seen or met anyone who is actually on Medicaid? I highly doubt it because they have impoverished themselves and they are down to their last leg financially. So Medicaid is not going to be an answer for you. Medicare, though, it's actually separate private and government programs. There's parts A, B, and D. You might go get a Medicare supplement policy of some kind, but you want to review how the premiums are paid and what your renewal dates are. From a legal standpoint, power of attorney, healthcare directives, your wills and your trusts, the healthcare directive and the power of attorney should be absolute priorities for you. We work with a law firm that can do this for you. They will also update your will and trust. If you're interested in that, you need to make sure you give us a call, reach out to us, let us know, because this is something that absolutely everybody does need to have. It's one of the few times you'll hear me say everybody should do something, right? Now, who is your power of attorney? What is your healthcare directive is going to be unique for everyone, right? My wishes are not the same as your wishes. Your wishes might not be the same as your spouse's wishes. That's okay. That's okay. But you should have a healthcare directive and a power of attorney. What you do in those cases is you designate what's called an agent. Okay. So powers of attorney, healthcare directives, the person who's supposed to make the decisions on your behalf, they become the agent. Okay. Now, that agent is a person who knows you well and they do have your best interests at heart. Some people will have a trust or a bank do it, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay because it takes a lot of the burdens of the decision making off of the family. And we've all seen families fight. We've all seen families, I've seen loads of examples over the years where people are like, oh, well, so and so did it, but there's no way mom's care really cost as much as he or she said it cost. And the implication there is, of course, the person stole money from mom before mom passed away. If you want to avoid that when you're doing this planning for yourself, absolutely ask about, hey, can we have a trust, or can we have a trust company or a bank or someone like that do it for us? Powers of attorney, you have what's called a durable power of attorney and then a springing power of attorney. Durable powers of attorneys in many cases are done between spouses. The springing power of attorney is very specific. It's, oh, now I'm sick. Oh, I can't make a financial decision. Oh, I can't do this. That's what a springing power of attorney is going to be like. But it's a specific criteria in terms of what they're looking at. The durable power of attorney, hey, your spouse can step in, and that's usually who we see named as the agent who's taking care of you. You're considered the principal in that case. You might want to consider a Medicaid asset protection plan. Some families explore, ways to move assets. Just keep in mind, this is a complex process. If anyone asks us about this, we refer them to essentially an elder care attorney because you do need to get very specific legal advice for this. We do not provide legal advice at Mission Financial Planners. And the rules are going to vary from state to state. So for our California clients, you'd want to talk to an attorney in California. For our Texas clients, you'd want to talk to a Texas-based attorney. Regarding the estate plan, the will and the trust, are they current? We meet people. I met two couples last night at an event we hosted. They both said they haven't updated their stuff in at least 10 years. And I asked them, what's changed in 10 years? And you know what they said? Everything. Kids are out of the house. They've sold a house. They've downsized. They've done all these things, right? They're enjoying retirement, and it's time to update everything, right? You may also want to consider a revocable living trust. This is something that I do think is a good idea because what happens then is you really do avoid probate in many cases, or the things that are held in the trust. The key about it being revocable is you and your spouse, you control the trust up until the day you die. So you can pull the money in or out whenever you want. Okay, from a financial planning standpoint now, here's where for us it gets really interesting because we got to look at sources of income. We got to look at what is your cash flow need, including what's the tax bill you're expecting to pay every year. What is your overall investment plan to include your assets, liabilities? And folks, that plan would also include your real estate, maybe the value of a business, all kinds of things. And then who are your trusted financial partners? Is it a CPA? Is it a property casualty agent? Is it a health agent? Is it a financial planner? Is it an attorney? Is it a business coach? It could be all kinds of different people. So when we look at sources of income, recurring expenses, what's the income plan? How is the income being provided, which then translates into your tax bill? And then who's advising you? All this stuff has to be put together. Okay, when you look at sources of income, and this is something we specialize in, we look at the pensions, the IRAs, all the stuff you see on the left-hand side of the screen. We then match that up against your expenses. And when you think about expenses, what I would want you to consider is something that we call an income floor. So for example, your housing, your healthcare, your food, and your drugs and medical, you've got that stuff that has to get paid every month. Well, at a minimum, that money needs to come in every month. Your transportation, your entertainment, maybe, maybe not, right? Maybe you don't go to the movies as much. Maybe you don't, maybe you don't travel quite the way you wanted to, but you're still traveling. Maybe you're not, maybe you're buying really nice cars. Maybe you're not, right? Maybe you're hiring someone to drive you, right? Maybe you're like one of my friends, his dad bought an electric car that has the auto driver feature, and he loves it because he doesn't really feel like he has to drive anywhere anymore. So What are your expenses? Think about that income floor idea that I talked about. What absolutely has to come into the house every month, no matter what, and then build from there. Build from there. Your overall assets. Test, test, test. Okay, I should be good. So from a overall asset standpoint, your assets don't just include your investment accounts. It does include any properties you own. Can be collectibles, can be vehicles, things like that. Your liabilities, all the stuff on the right. Don't forget about property taxes. If you're in a state like Texas or California where we have really high property taxes, that's something you need to factor in to your decision-making process. Okay, so you've taken stock, right? You've reviewed your insurance, you've reviewed your legal documents, you've reviewed your assets, your liabilities, your income needs, your taxes, you've reviewed all this stuff. What do we do now? Okay, we look at the whole thing and we say, hey, is the asset allocation appropriate? Because if you're someone who is going to just take a big savings account, essentially, or investment account, and that's your reserve in case something happens, should that be as invested as aggressively as money that you really just don't think you're going to need at all in retirement? Probably not, because if you do have that healthcare incident, you suddenly become frail, your body doesn't care about the fact that maybe your portfolio is down 20% because it's a poor market year. What's going to happen is going to happen. So you want to be smart about, if I'm going to break out assets for this, or even if I'm just going to use insurance, what's paying for the insurance? Where's that money coming from? Is it there? Can I make sure it's there, even if there's a market downturn? And that's where working with a certified financial planner who's looking at the income, the assets, and the insurance can really help put that picture together for you. Okay. Beneficiary designations are super important. Make sure your beneficiaries are current. If you and your spouse are alive, in most families, you are each other's 100% beneficiary on everything: insurance policies, investment accounts, you name it. Once there's one spouse has passed away, the other surviving spouse now has to make a decision. Who should the beneficiaries be for everything? Okay. But you need to do this it's the fourth bullet point: insurance, annuities, pensions, investments, bank accounts. If you and your spouse are set up as the primary, you probably want your children to be contingent beneficiaries. And people will say, oh, well, do I really have to? Yeah, because what happens if you both die in a car accident? What if you die suddenly? I had an aunt and uncle, literally husband and wife. They died within 45 days of each other earlier this year. It happens. Okay. It happens. So make sure those beneficiaries are current. The financial professionals, your team, in many cases, we become the pivot point or the axle for the team. We are the hub, we are the center, because we're the ones who have a good idea of what the whole picture looks like. And it's going to be your accountant, your insurance professionals, your attorneys, the bank representatives. In many cases, we're the ones who are pivoting with everybody to make sure that they understand why you're doing what it is you're doing and how they can best support that. So make sure you've got a list of professionals that you're working with. One of the more interesting things for us, at any rate, is tax planning. And we have a great relationship with a tax attorney based out of St. Louis. His name's Nathaniel Landman. But you want to think about, how are your taxes getting paid? How often do you file? If there's in-home help, are you withholding any taxes? Do you have any of the elder employer tax benefits? Right? We want to make sure that we're looking at that, because in many cases there can be hidden dollars in there as well. So understanding the care recipient's monthly cash flow. If you haven't done a budget, I know it sounds terrible. You want to talk with us about this, because we have a fantastic system that you can coordinate everything through, and you can even do it to run your budget. You can do it to track your investment accounts. It all fits in one spot. And so it's something you want to do. One of the hardest things for people, I think, is acknowledging what type of spender you are, like what your relationship with money is. The reason that's so difficult for people is because if you're a spender when you're working, you're going to be a spender in retirement. It's who you are. If you are a saver in your working years, you're going to keep being a saver in retirement, because that's who you are. So That monthly budget needs to reflect who you are, not what me as your financial advisor thinks it should be, but what you think it should be. The biggest thing, folks, is be honest with yourself. If you know you're on an unsustainable trend from a spending and income standpoint, the best thing you can do is take 90 days, and I'll say it one more time, 90 days, and track all your expenses. You'll be shocked at what you're spending your money on. You'll be shocked. And the reason 90 days is so important, it isn't just a long enough window. It's also, there's all kinds of psychology behind that as well. It starts building the habit in your mind. And after 90 days, it usually becomes a habit for people. They just keep doing it, right? So make sure you keep an eye on this. If you're slipping, if you think you're slipping, if you're worried one of your parents is starting to slip with that, go back to our first point, have a conversation. I need help. I think I might need help. Or, hey, mom, how you doing? Okay, what living options are going to appeal to the person? Everyone I talk to says they want to stay at home, right? Um, but if I got to move, where am I going to move? I can honestly tell you, if my parents moved in with me, it might drive me a little crazy. I don't ever want to put my children in a situation where they feel like I have to move in with them, right? Like, to me, that's just something I am not comfortable with at all, which means if I have to move at some point, do I move to a retirement facility or some kind of assisted living facility, which is most likely what would happen in my case. If you're concerned about funding, there are public benefits available. AARP has some fantastic tools for you. So I just turned 52 earlier this year. AARP starts hitting you hard when you turn 49, and they do put together some great resources. Make sure you check them out. Make sure you check them out. The other thing, and we've talked with people about this over the years, the other thing I would strongly recommend is a letter of instruction or a video of instruction. Shoot a little video and just say, hey, you know what, guys, here's what I really want to have happen. That can provide so much clarity for people. I have this big collection of whatever, and you know what? I know I'm the only one who cares about it. Hey, guys, here, call this guy. He knows what to do with it all. Sell it all to him, right? That kind of thing. Hey, you know what? I know I own 3 rental properties and I have 3 kids. Sell them if you want to. Nobody has to keep any of those properties just because I had bought one with the idea that maybe, you'd move into one someday. I don't expect that from you. If you want to, that'd be great. If not, that's okay too. Those are the types of things you should make sure are super clear for people. Okay. Make sure all this stuff is secured. We have a secure bank encrypted vault that you can store this stuff in. A lot of people still like to have a paper copy in like a safe at home or in an important file or desk drawer or something like that, or kitchen drawer at home. But make sure this stuff is in there. Your will, your trust, your power of attorney. I would even say your insurance policies, investment accounts, beneficiary designations, and on top should be that letter of intent, or maybe that little thumb drive or whatever it is that has your video of intent on it. But our digital vault, again, bank encryption, it can be a great spot to store stuff. Okay, we're getting into the third point here. Caregiving, and I mentioned this in the introduction, caregiving doesn't just impact you, okay? It's your family who it really impacts. You're getting care. You may not even be aware of what's going on at that point. It's going to sound terrible, but you might be in la la land. That's okay. But your family is the one who's picking up the slack for you now. And for most people, they want to make sure that their family doesn't have too much of a burden physically and emotionally when it comes to providing care. Okay. So I don't like getting into statistics like this because it's just something that when you sit back and you think about it, what happens when you get older? You age and eventually you become frail if you're lucky enough to live that long. When you're frail, how are you going to get the care you deserve that protects your dignity and your family's dignity as well? Okay. If you don't do this, if you just watch this and go, whatever, I'm not going to do anything. Just stop and think for a second. Let's say your oldest child is super successful and the oldest child is the one that you want to take care of you when something happens. Okay. Are they prepared to give up their career to do it? Are they prepared to give up the family time to do it? Are they prepared financially to pick up the costs? Will their kids resent the fact that mom or dad is suddenly not available anymore? Will it cause issues at work? Will they burn out at some point and maybe do or say something that they really wouldn't do if they burned out? We've all been there. That's what happens, folks. I had someone actually tell me their daughter-in-law was going to take care of them. And I said, "Oh, what does she do?" She's a nurse practitioner. And they were super proud that their son had married this amazing woman. And I just asked, I'm like, "Okay, so you've talked with her about this?" "Well, not really, no." "Okay. As a nurse practitioner, she probably does pretty well financially, right?" "Oh yeah, she does. She makes a lot of money for the household. She's really important." And I said, "So you're expecting her to quit that job to take care of you?" "Well, no." "So you're expecting her to go down to part-time to take care of you?" "Well, no." "Well, how's she supposed to take care of you and still earn money for her family?" And folks, you could just tell they had never really thought about it. That's what I'm saying. Don't just think about this, oh, it's never going to happen to me. Think about this in terms of, okay, wait a second. If this does happen to me, what is the possible impact for my family? That's what you need to think about with this. Okay. Again, these statistics, you can look these up. These are all over the place. This becoming the primary caregiver really does a number on people. And one of the ways you know that is um, some insurance policies will actually provide what's called respite care, which means that if there is a family member who is the full-time caregiver, like 1 day a week or 2 days a week, the insurance policy pays to have somebody come in and provide care so that person can just get a day off. So think about that. Insurance companies have even figured that out at this point with about how stressful it is. So it's one of those things that the help is out there if you do it. There's professional services that can help do it. There's caregiving support out there, but you need to make sure you're having a conversation and you're really thinking about this as well. Okay. We talked a little bit about some of the technology, the digital vault you can use to make sure you've got all the information. We talked about it more in terms of financial, legal, and insurance information, but you can also store your prescriptions in there. You can store your doctors in there, right? It's a lot easier to check in on Skype and FaceTime, tools like that than it ever used to be, right? FaceTime, right? Video conferencing, whatever, right? There's medication reminders you can get. And then, of course, there's some of the personal emergency devices as well. If you think you're at all at risk or one of your parents is at all at risk of a serious fall, make sure they have one of those personal emergency devices. Just make sure. And then I know this will be the hard part. Get them to wear it when they're home, at least when they're home by themselves. For you as the caregiver, the biggest thing, folks, I would say is try to keep your job if at all possible. There's something called the Family Leave Act that can potentially help you navigate some of this stuff, but make sure your employer knows what's going on as well. In most cases, I think you'll be surprised at how supportive your employer can be in these situations. Okay. We've covered a lot in just about 35 minutes. And some people say, hey, oh, okay, Matt, you've just thrown the kitchen sink at me. I get it that you and the team at Mission Financial Planners are really good at this stuff, but what gives? I mean, how am I supposed to do all this? That's why you want to work with us. It's a team approach, right? Not one person can do all this. It's just not possible. There are not enough hours in the day. There aren't enough dollars to go around in most cases. Not one person can do everything. So what do? Well, keep in mind, work with a team. Okay. It's easy to say, I got this. And then, oh my God, I'm just so overwhelmed, but you don't want to admit it because you told everyone that you got it. Right. I may have done that a few times in my life. My partners, Jason and Ken, could tell you I do that. Right. Well, what you want to do beyond just engaging with your financial planning team and your tax team and your legal team and your insurance team is, hey, who's the person who's going to get the care? Are they fully on board with this plan? Who are the family and emotional support members who need to make sure they know that there is a plan in place, and if and when something happens, who they got to get a hold of to make sure the care is going to get delivered. My partner Ken actually had a client who ended up in a long-term care, an extended care scenario for 6 or 7 months, and he hadn't heard from him, so he kept reaching out to him, no response. He finally called his son, and his son's like, "Yeah, Dad's been in a hospital for 4 or 5 months at this point. He's on a ventilator, the whole thing." And Ken's like, "Oh my gosh, he has a long-term care policy." And the son had no idea, right? No idea. That's a simple example, folks, but we need to make sure we're having these conversations. And even if you're not talking to us about it, talk to your family about it. If you're the one who's worried about getting care for yourself, have these conversations. If you're concerned about providing care for someone else, have these conversations. Okay. Your team will vary. We've talked a lot about this, but again, the 4 key challenges. Number one is make sure the person's taken care of. They've got the care they deserve and they've got it with dignity. 2, that doesn't happen if you're not addressing 4 key areas, right? The medical, the legal, the financial, and the personal. 3, this affects the whole family and friend network. It doesn't just affect the person who's ill. In many cases, when you're doing this plan, it's not to protect the person who's ill, it's to protect the family and friends so that they don't get exhausted and worn out by this. And that's why you need a team approach. Accountant, attorney, insurance, financial planner, all has to be working together to support you. They can't be one's doing this, one's doing that, one's doing this, no, it's all got to be together. And folks, if you're the person who's built the master plan, the thing I would challenge you on is who knows the master plan beside you? Who knows what's supposed to happen? Do they know? Are you sure? Have the conversation. So some of the reactions we see, okay, it's way overcomplicated. Um, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming, right? The stakes are just too high. I don't know enough about it. I don't really understand some of the financial and legal stuff. Well, that's why you get started with an actual caregiving plan. And so what you do with a caregiving plan, or what it does for you, is it makes sure that the person's going to get the care they deserve. It addresses the 4 key challenges we talked about. It's monitored and updated regularly from a financial and legal standpoint, and it's got professional advice coming in to help you navigate a very complicated, and I will say a very stressful time in your life. Is it stressful for the person who needs care? Yes. Is it complicated and stressful for you, who's maybe the primary caregiver? Very much so. So request that caregiving plan overview meeting. So what we do, it's a 1-hour meeting. What we will do is go through a checklist with you to make sure that caregiving plan is in place. You'll leave the meeting with some specific action steps, and make sure you just get a hold of me, get a hold of Ken, get a hold of Jason to see what you want to do. So looks like we don't have any questions in the chat. I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap up about 18 minutes early, which is fantastic. We'll give you some time back. Please give us a call. Again, I'm Matt Donaghue, Mission Financial Planners. Red on red there. Can't really see the website, but it's just missionfinancialplanners.com. But give us a call. If you're checking this out on YouTube or something like that, because we will post this to YouTube later today, let us know. We'd be thrilled to have a conversation with you. Thanks again, everyone, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.